Well, a very good evening to you. You are just in time for Beyond the Headlines. My name is Catherine Achenga. Now, this week on Beyond the Headlines, we will be focusing on a conversation that has been ongoing, the Punguza Mizigo Constitutional Amendment Bill. The progress so far, have they been able to at least talk to the MCAs and the people at the counties to be able to get their support towards this particular bill. Of course, coming at a time when we also have the twist with the BBI, politicians saying that they are more in support of the report that will come out of the BBI and some of the proposals that they will be putting forward, citing that that is at least more involving than what happened with the Punguza Mizigo Constitutional Amendment Bill. So we will just be seeking to look at what are some of the issues that have been raised and what really are Kenyans saying as regards this particular bill, and will it pass in at least 24 counties for it to make it to the National Assembly and the Senate, and will the politicians pass this particular bill? Those are the questions we are asking this evening, and I will be introducing you to my guests in just a bit. But before I do that, as is our tradition, let me now quickly cross over to Jane, who is on the other side of the studio. She will be giving you some of the lines where you can give us your feedback, as well as talking to Kenyans on what they really feel. Today our panel is big. Jane, over to you. Good evening to you. Have you been counted, by the way?
I was counted on the third day.
On the third day?
On the third day.
Oh, wow.
I'm not among the 5%. Have you been counted?
Yes, yesterday morning.
Finally.
8 a.m. in the morning.
All right.
Yeah.
Very good evening to you, and welcome once again to Beyond the Headlines. My name is Jane Wambui. Now, as aforementioned, today we're going to be looking at the Constitution Amendment Bill, popularly known as the Punguza Mizigo Bill, which is being championed by Third Way Party Alliance leader, that is Dr. Okuru Okot. Now, this bill is all about easing the burden on the common mwananchi, so it has been said. But on the other hand of the divide, we have some members of parliament who have been vigorous in frustrating this bill. Now, some MPs have actually been vocal to a point where they say they plan to exploit a loophole that is in the Constitution if this bill does actually get the backing of at least 24 counties and it's brought back to the Parliament. Now, just to tell you a bit about this loophole, looking at the Constitution, Article 257, it stipulates that there is no timelines within which Parliament should introduce a bill in the floor. Now, they plan to take advantage of this loophole by sitting on this bill until when they so feel like they can introduce it in Parliament, because they say they were not included or consulted in the making of this, in the coming up of this bill rather. So now this brings out so many varied opinions among the Mwananchi. You know, one side saying this bill is supposed to help the Mwananchi, and some of our leaders saying that, you know, it is in not any way helping. They were not consulted when in the engagement and coming up of this bill. Now, today we just want to hear from you. What do you make of these efforts that are being made by some of our members of parliament to frustrate this bill, yet it is intended to help the common Mwananchi? What do you make of this frustration that the Punguza Mizigo bill is receiving from some members of parliament? And as Catherine has said, today we have a big panel with us in studio. I'm just going to be engaging some gentlemen with me on this side of studio just to introduce you to them. We have to my immediate left, we have the Secretary General of People's Grassroots Movement, that is Jackton Obadiah. He will be sharing with us his views and opinions in regards to this matter as well. And I'm just quickly going to come to you, gentlemen. Just your immediate reaction when we talk about this Punguza Mizigo bill. What comes to mind? Do you support it or do you not support it? Here you go.
I don't support Punguza Mizigo because this is the greatest political fraud that have ever existed in the history of Kenyan politics. And Punguza Mizigo bill is dead on arrival.
Dead on arrival.
Dead on arrival.
All right.
That is my take.
Next to him, we have Mark Ababu, who is the president of the Bunge la Wananchi. And let me just also hear from you before we go to the other side of the studio. Do you support the Punguza Mizigo initiative, the bill in itself?
I support it partially.
Why?
And, the reason why I support it, there are some of the points that I agree with it, like now devolving some of the resources and also giving the MCA some kitties. I support him partially.
Partially.
Yeah.
All right. And then next to him, to the extreme left, we have, that is Alex Otunga, who is the coordinator still at the People's Grassroots Movement. Your thoughts when it comes to the Punguza Mizigo bill? Do you support it? Do you not support it? And why?
Actually, I'm in between because when you look at its provisions, there are other provisions which are very good, and then others we have to look into it. For instance, when you talk about empowering the county governments by giving 35% from 15%. I think that is good. But again, at the same time, among other provisions, when he says that if our case has been taken to court, especially those involving the corrupt individuals, it has to take 30 days, and then the appeal at 21 days. I think that is not workable, because actually a judiciary is an independent institution and has actually to work within its framework. Yeah.
All right, and we will be getting back to continue with that discussion on this side of studio. But for now, we just want to hear from you. Remember, we are asking you, do you support this bill or do you not support this bill? And what do you make of this frustration that it is receiving from some of our members of parliament, and just taking advantage of this loophole that is there in the Constitution? The hashtag is Beyond the Headlines on Twitter. Our official station handle ever remains at KBC Television. My handle is the Genuine Boy, and my colleague on the other side of studio, she is at Kanto Achenga. And of course, our SMS line is 20154. We'd absolutely love to know where you are watching us from this evening. And for those who need to leave the house, no worries. You can stream us live on our website. That is www.kbc.co.ke/live, and you'll be able to follow the conversation en route to where you are going this evening. But for now, back to you, Catherine, to get started with this discussion.
All right, thank you, Jane. Of course, give us your feedback. We will be sampling your views later on as we go along. But for now, let me introduce you to my panelists. On my immediate left, I have with us Eunice Nganga, who is an advocate of the High Court, as well as the legal advisor at Third Way Alliance Party. Of course, are the ones who are responsible for generating the Punguza Mizigo constitutional amendment bill. It's good to have you, Eunice.
Thank you for having me.
Well, next to her, we have with us Justice Ngari, who is a political analyst as well as a lecturer at Kisii University. Good to have you, Justice.
Thank you.
And last but not least, Alex Manyasi, who is a governance expert as well as a resident analyst. Alex, it's good to have you back.
Thank you.
All right, let's kick off this conversation with you, Eunice. You've just heard what the gentlemen have said. Obviously, Bunge la Mwananchi 50-50 about the bill, but the People's Grassroots Alliance saying that this is political fraud. What do you think?
Let me start by saying that for all the opponents of the Punguza Mizigo bill, we have not had a discourse on what is this they disagree on. They say it's political fraud, but what is this point? What is this proposal that to them is political fraud? So we would like to engage, and I like the ones who are saying that they don't agree with this point and that point, as opposed to somebody saying this is fraud, because we do not know what you mean by that. The second thing I'd like to say is every Kenyan has a right to support or reject the bill. That's within every Kenyan's right. And we, for example, for me as a supporter, I will not be offended if someone does not agree with it, and I am not going to feel that they are fighting us. No. It is the right of every Kenyan, and everyone should have a reason to support or to reject.
Okay.
What we want to discuss is, what are your reasons? Then we disagree or agree.
Okay.
But we are not just going to say it's fraud and we disagree. And the other thing is, that's the reason why the Constitution gives a threshold that's not 100%. For every proposal on the constitutional change, whether you use Article 256 or 257, the threshold is not 100%. So there has to be disagreements, which we are okay with. Just disagree on principle. What is it you don't
like
agree
about
with?
the bill?
Yes.
All right, Justice, what are your thoughts about the Punguza Mizigo bill?
First of all, from where I sit, I see the bill as a bill with having someone pushing it, but it doesn't have the right people who are the propellers of the bill. Because if you look at the history of what we've been doing, especially the country in terms of constitutional change, first of all, for us to have a constitution, the one that we're operating in now, we had to have a committee of experts, people who sat down and drafted the bill. And one Ekuru Okot was one of the members of the Zamba Gitonga committee, which gave us the draft that we are having now. But now, the most important thing is what we are looking at in this bill is, first of all, we cannot agree with everything. Because one thing, we cannot say we are overrepresented. Because the Kenya we have right now, remember we are coming from 210 constituencies to sub-counties, from 210 constituencies to 290 sub-counties, what we have right now. So because the population has grown, and now we even had the census, we now have to say that because the supremacy of the constitution, I believe, is the people. And the power of the people is in the National Assembly. So you cannot tell us we are already overrepresented, yet even me right now, I feel I'm not yet overrepresented.
So you don't agree with the bill?
I do not agree with the bill.
All right. Alex, 50-50, 100%, what is your take on the bill?
Okay, from me, I'll approach it from, I've not seen the BBI, so I may not make comparisons. But from what I have seen and what my interrogation will be, is that there are several proposals that, in my view, make a lot of sense to me. One being we've had fights a lot about a president running for 5 years, and then the next 5 years is when they sit down to actually start undoing anything, because in the first 5-year term, they were trying to please everybody and all that. So that's one. And secondly, the second thing, which I agree with, of course, is making one house an upper house with veto powers, because that also creates harmony within the legislature and ensuring that we, like the issue of division of revenue, we wouldn't be having that if we had a clear mandate of every house. But there are several things that will be very difficult for Punguza Mizigo to pull through. One is that the imagination that we had initially about the wards is not necessarily true. One is that the wards will actually be the constituencies, and therefore that also means that the wards might not necessarily be the same as they are. They might actually be reduced. And secondly, the issue of getting resources to the county level. There is a proposal to say 35% should go to the counties. Counties are already getting almost 35%.
Yeah.
So my argument will be that we need to be focusing on creating a position that talks about functions and not figures. Because if you talk about functions, then it will be easy and create a mechanism where we can do the mathematics around what are the functions that are being handled by the counties vis-a-vis what the national government is running. Because you can imagine if you put under the constitution again, because we said 15, we put under the constitution again and say 35, and then 10 years down the line, we have the national function handling 10%. So what happens?
Yeah. All right. So are you 50-50 or 100%? I'm guessing 50-50. There's what you support and what you don't. Yeah.
I actually like his idea because he's addressing the issues, and it's clear what he doesn't agree with and what he agrees with.
So now that brings us to the question of civic education. To what extent have you really engaged the public? Because that is the argument that people who are supporting BBI are
yeah, that is where I am going. The Constitution under Article 257 has got 5 levels of public participation, and I'll ask kindly that you let me finish with the 5 levels.
Very briefly.
Yeah. The first level of public participation is where every Kenyan, including you, don't say it's not being pushed by the right people, because even you have got a right to come up with a proposal, you individually, reduce it to a bill and push it into a constitutional amendment. The conditions are, number 1, you must go to 1 million people to support you. So that's the first level of public participation. Because for 1 million people to support you, you have to explain to them what is this thing that you're proposing. And that's what the Third Way Alliance team did. And we had people who said, kama ni hiyo sitaki. They didn't support. So, but we did manage to convince the 1.4 and IEBC verified 1.2. So we are good on that. The second level is where that, even after being supported by the 1 million signatures, IEBC must confirm that those people are registered voters. That's the second level of public participation. Once IEBC confirms that, that's not the end. It has got to the people's representatives at the ward level. That's the third level. So if you do not agree with the bill, you have another chance now to go to your MCA in the public participation forums they are calling and tell them, I disagree.
Okay.
That is the third level. The fourth level is Parliament and Senate. And then the final and the most important one is the referendum. If you do not agree with it at the referendum, vote no. So nobody can say they were left out or there was no public participation. So
let's look at Parliament and Senate, where already they're saying that they're going to frustrate your bill. They're saying because there's no timeline that is, put when we should debate this bill. To what level have you engaged them? Because they obviously seem not to want to really, a section of them at least.
So the advantage we have with the Punguza Mizigo team is that it's composed of serious constitutional lawyers, beginning with Dr. Ikuru Aukot. So we go systematically. You realize that they do a lot of background work. So right now, the focus is on the counties. And you can see the efforts being made. So far, we are done with 14, visiting them and explaining to them. Next week, we have 3. We target to visit at least 37 county assemblies with the limited resources. So once we are done with that, now we go to Parliament and the Senate. But that is not to say we are not currently engaging them. We are just not officially, we have not gone to them. But we intend, after the county assemblies, the next campaign is inside Parliament.
Okay.
We will go to them, we will discuss with them, although in the meantime, we are still engaging on what do they disagree with, and if they disagree on principle, we agree to disagree.
You agree to
The next thing
All
I
right.
wanted to say is the drafters of the Constitution envisioned a situation where there would be political goodwill. They did not imagine that Parliament would at some time decide we are going to sit on this bill because we do not like it, it is not in our interest. What they are supposed to do is to vote no.
But just
and push
as, if they don't, if there's no political goodwill, will they get anywhere? Let's just
First of all, at some point, it has to reach a level of politicians of engagement. In as much as we are engaging as Mwananchi, we are engaging as the people, there must be a level whereby the politicians will also have their say. And now, for that bill to reach to us as people, so that we can vote it, it has to be passed first of all by the two houses. Whereby we have already seen them now, they have come out strongly to oppose the bill, and they are saying they have their own bill that is coming, which is a BBI, which they are
so
saying...
that is the right people who you are saying should be pushing the bill.
Can I just make a correction?
What I'm saying, before you make the correction, what we are saying is, if it was of the goodwill of even of the people, you would have got the right people who should be championing for your bill. Because right now, even if you move
So who are
around,
the right people
The
in your
right people,
perspective?
that's-
Justice?
you need to
first of
correct
all,
that.
we need to have a people, like an engagement of people from all perspectives. For example, look at the leaders who are already elected by the Mwananchi, have some people, look at representation from the youth, look at just a diverse scope, whereby people who can sit down such that even when they are going to Parliament, they already have members of Parliament who are already in support of the bill, because when they were drafting that bill to reduce even the sub-counties to 147, now there are people who are seated there who are saying now the bill is coming and it is going to render us jobless. So they are saying we can even sit on the bill until when our term is over. Maybe the next Parliament that will come with that mind of passing that bill.
Okay.
So for the BBI, they have good, some points are good. Like one-term presidential term, some things we can pick from them. And that's why we are saying, when we are even calling the BBI, let them not kick out completely this document. Let them look at the document. We have a candid discussion about the document so that those points we are saying they are valid, we can take them and bring a complex, because when you are going to vote the Constitution, we shall not vote for Punguza Mzigo or BBI, we shall vote either yes or no. So why should we now water down what they have been doing, and they have worked around their hard work, yet they are well-trained lawyers who have been able to scrutinize, because what we are talking now, the Constitution we are to pass right now is not about the politicians. We want the Constitution of the people. The changes we are making right now, let the changes not be only coming from the politicians. And that's why we are saying, let them not ignore this bill. Yes.
All right, Alex, because of course constitutional changing is always a political process. I mean, do you think perhaps the Third Way Alliance, in some aspect, didn't want to engage the politicians directly for some reason?
I don't know, but
Can I answer?
what I can say,
I was there, I know.
what I can say is that before she responds,
I will answer.
is that Dr. Okot was part of the current constitution-making process.
Yes.
He knows what happened at Naivasha. He knows what happened at Kilifi.
Yes.
He knows why we ended up where we are.
Yes.
He knows that. So you will have expected.
So he was learning from the mistakes.
You will have expected that he will have known that the people that probably needed to get a compromise more were the politicians even before coming to Kenyans.
Okay.
Because trust me, what will happen is that some Kenyans will be told what to do.
True.
So, and you remember even when we voted for the previous constitution, there were some people who said, we don't have to read it, we've been told it's good.
Yes.
So that is a fact in our Kenyan context. So Dr. Okot, having been part of that process, he should have known that that is a reality that he needs to deal with.
Okay.
And so the issue of politics coming into play is not a question of if, it's a question of when.
Okay. All right. I need to go to the other side of the studio, so I'll come back to you when we
I
begin.
hope I remember.
I'll help you remember. All right. Let's quickly cross over to Jen, who's on the other side of the studio, to get your feedback and also get the comments from our guests who are on the other side of the studio. Jane?
Right. Now remember, the hashtag is Beyond the Headlines on Twitter. My handle is Genuine Boy. My colleague at Kanto Achenga, and of course our official station handle is at KBC Television. And I quickly want to understand some of what we have seen so far on our Twitter platform. The hashtag once again being Beyond the Headlines. Let me just zoom in a bit closer for you to get a proper view. We'll start with, let me quickly get this. Yes, argument saying, you know, after failing to win a single seat in all houses, he opted to colonize and manipulate current houses through the Punguza Mzigo bill, also calling the Punguza Mzigo scam. Views of our opinion of our viewers. Then continue to say that later he will come to claim support by all Kenyans and houses. This is a political project in regards to this Punguza Mzigo bill. Now, we have another one here just saying that, you know, the Punguza Mzigo bill is a proponent's opinion, not a fact. Why would we go for election every 5 years if it is just to elect powerless MPs while that government would be in power for 7 years? Crazy. All right. Another one by Musa Omari says, BBI was meant and started for national reconciliation, then metamorphosized to constitutional reforms, and now has evolved to jailing the corrupt. Let us support the Punguza Mzigo bill to atane nao wa kutafuta mabibi wasiojulikana. And one last one, we have Kab Kam, who says, who cares who this bill belongs to? What's important is the content in it. The Punguza Mzigo bill has already been owned by the Hustler Nation, wapende wasipende. BBI, Waizungushe Runda, Karen, Muthaiga, probably it will get sympathizers there, but not among the hustlers. Tumechoka. As you can see, divided opinion for that in regards to, you know, this bill. Some saying, you know, yes, we support it, comparing it to the BBI as well. And some say, you know what, EBBI is also a political project, and as much as, you know, the Punguza Mzigo bill is also a political project. Now, let me come to you, gentlemen. Just hearing from what is happening on the other side of the studio, now, opinions of wananchi hapa. What do you make of all that? Let me start with you.
Okay, first of all, like I said, that this is some sort of political scam because the people's input were not involved. The people were not involved in this process. And as you can see, it's just a bombshell that fell from nowhere.
So it goes back to civic education
goes
and
back to
public
civic
participation.
education. And apart from that, we remember when we were trying to save Kenya by the time we were going for the second election, I remember the people who were there, the pro-change, said that there were not going to be election. The same Okurokot was the one man who again initiated the election. So he cannot come again and then say that, oh, he's coming with a bill, change the referendum and things like that. So to me, it's just looking for support. So to me, it's a fraud. He's looking for support for people who can try to help him propel towards the political ladder.
Right.
If you check on the counterpart, the BBI, the BBI is well articulated. After for handshake, instantly, Raila Amolo Odinga, the people's president, and Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, the honorable, the president of the Republic of Kenya, they sat down and they started saying, where did the rain start beating us? So we want a Kenya where the winner does not take it all. And that is why they started by initiating the people, walking around the nation, trying to look at the national ethos. They're trying to look at election violence and fraud, things like that, corruption and other issues. So we have a point or the basis where the BBI is basing their point. So when they come with the referendum, it shall be people's-led referendum, not an individual who is looking at a way of storming the masses with big sounds where something like when Kenya hears of Punda Mechoka, they think that salvation has come. The common mass, they tend to look for change.
All right.
So they may be looking for change, and in that change, there is no process. When Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, in his first term, he changed he decided to take away the assistant ministers. After work became hard, he came back again, and then he brought again the chief ministers that again came. So we may tend to reduce it, but at the end of the day, we are going to go back to the same level where we came from. So let us not
it's a cycle that is
just
just
a cycle.
going back and
So
back and forth.
when we are talking about governance, the issues of Kenya is corruption.
Okay.
That is where our money goes to. The public debt right now is 5.4 trillion. So let us look at a way we are going to pay the debt, and let us look a way how the government will have an environment to empower the people so that we spur our economic growth.
All right.
Not this issue of economic saving for the government. Government is not a private.
Let me hear from you, Mark. Ababu, you had mentioned that you partly support the Punguza Mzigo bill and partly not support it. And there is a viewer here who said, this bill is a political project. Do you agree with that?
I don't. It will be unfair to Ekuru Okoth because, majority of Kenyans, they like popular initiative, where they like stories. For me, I want to be genuine. First and foremost, Ekuru Okoth came to our place. He visited at Jivanji. That's where the common mwananchi sits. And we signed. We read the bill, and the people who disagree with it, they never gave out their signatures. Personally, I signed. So I'm shocked when my friend is saying that Ekuru Okoth never visited the common mwananchi. By the way, I'm the new people's president.
Yes.
And that's why they voted me as people. So I'm wondering when my friend is referring to the right honorable former prime minister as the people's president, current term the new people's president. Second, concerning on the same bill, there are some point that, to some point, I disagree with Ekuru Okoth when he comes up and say that we need to have at least 2 MPs per counties. No. On that, I would say on that, whoever advised him, it's wrong, because currently we need to add more MPs, because the resources that are being distributed to the CDF, they need to be revolved and also devolved to the MCA at the ward level.
All right.
Yeah.
Let me come to you, Alex, and I'd like for you to respond to one tweet here by Musa Omari, who's saying, BBI was meant and started for national reconciliation, then it metamorphosized to constitutional reforms, and now to jailing the corrupt. Let us support the Punguza Mzigo bill to an after Mabini. In a sense, saying, the BBI was politicized, it became, so much sideshows going on. Comparing it now to Punguza Mzigo bill now being what the people need. What do you make of such? Just go ahead and speak to our viewer.
I think it will be very wrong for us to start making comments about BBI, and I think it's very important that we wait, then we see what it contains. And I think I'm one of ardent supporters of one Raila Amolo Odinga, but on this one, I have to be very clear. Because one, if I go back to Punguza Mzigo, procedurally, it has actually gone through the right procedures as far as the Constitution is concerned. Go to Article 255, subsection 1.
Yes.
Whereas issues which are being raised actually in this draft bill definitely requires a referendum. It refers to a referendum. Then when we go to Article 256, it talks about parliamentary initiative. And then what the Punguza Mzigo has used is actually the people's initiative, which has gone through the process. But what we are saying is, in the provisions of the Punguza Mzigo, there are issues. For example, I'm talking about representation. I think the problem is not that we are overrepresented. That is not a big problem. I think we should be looking at where is the problem. And I think the problem is institutions. Because when you are talking of overrepresentation, as Punguza Mzigo says, that we are going to reduce our budget. We're going to save 31 billion. Out of that 6, we're going to save 31 because when we reduce the numbers we save, okay, we're going to use 5 billion. I think that 1 billion is a drop in the ocean when you look at actually our budget, which is actually 3 trillion. And number 2, again, when you look at its provisions, they talk about jailing the individuals who are involved in corruption. I think I support that, and I think it's very important because today in Kenya, most of our leaders, I'm not ashamed to say this, most of our leaders, we know they have got cases in court, and some of them are MPs, are serving as MPs and other positions. I think that is where we have a very big problem. That is where if we strengthen the institutions, then we may not end up having wrong leaders in positions. Finally, again, I'm talking about the issue of the Punguza Mzigo talking about having the governors appointing a deputy governor, not having a running mate. I think that is actually also missing a point that is going to reduce conflict of interest because people are in fighting. I think the running mate is also there to check if the governor is not working, then he can be checked. Again,
an accountability partner
then
of sorts.
Or actually empowering the Senate to actually to have veto powers. I think I'll support that. Why? We've seen what happened with the tax bill, where actually the National Assembly forced it through. I think if the Senate had veto powers, they will veto and actually check on the excesses of the National Assembly. So I think at this particular time, when we have the BBI's provisions coming out, and which we go through, that is when our clear stand will be known. But at the moment, I think I'm 50-50. There are provisions, the Punguza Mzigo, which are good, others are not good.
All right.
And finally, as I summarize,
very briefly,
I say that it's very important that as a country, let us not compare ourselves with developed countries. I think it's very important we chart our own destiny, because one of the comparisons Akura Court is making is comparing the population of China, the population of USA, the population of India. I think those are different countries, and this is an African country. Let's do things our own way. Even in Kenyan history, we talk about African nationalism.
Yes.
That is, we are looking at a blueprint that is purely African, that champions African interest.
All right. A blueprint that champions the African interest. I'm going to throw the discussion back to the other side of studio. Maybe Achenga, you can also pick up from what we have had here. And of course, from what our viewers are saying on social media, keep talking to us. # Beyond the Headlines on Twitter, at KBC Television, at Kato Achenga, at Jane Wambui, and of course, at SMS line 20154. Leave a name and location. Back to you, Catherine.
All right. Thank you, Jane. And I want to get your immediate reaction, Eunice, from what you've heard from the other side, particularly what our viewers are saying as regards the Punguza Mzigo Constitutional Amendment Bill.
Let me start from where he just stopped before I forget. A design of a governance structure that reflects the aspirations of the people of Kenya. Now, listening to a lot of Kenyans on the ground, the Mwananchi down there, the only thing Kenyans keep repeating is they want services closer to them. Kenyans at the ward level want clean drinking water. They want passable roads. They want a health center they can go to where there is a nurse and a doctor. They would like to have an ambulance and that is able to pass through the roads down there, okay? So what we are saying with Punguza Mizigo, the backbone of Punguza Mizigo is remove the resources from the national government, bring it down to the ward, so that we start to measure development projects from the ward, not the constituency, from the ward. That way, nobody will care about the upper levels. Dr. Ikuru Aukot keeps saying, Kenyans will not care if a cow is the president, as long as they have clean drinking water, as long as they have a passable road, as long as they have a school nearby for their children, as long as they have a health center which is equipped and an available ambulance. You understand? So this structure, if it works, it will bring the resources to the ward to serve the people, and therefore no Kenyan is going to worry about being represented by 10 people at the National Assembly. Because why do we want representation? Because we believe when we have MPs in Parliament, then development projects will come to our doorsteps. That's what we believe.
So aren't we just transferring the problem to the ward itself?
That is not the problem. Now we are bringing the development closer. There is no problem we are devolving because we are saying
over-representation.
No, currently we have 1,450 wards. We are not touching them, which means we are not adding them. All we've done is said above, beyond the wards, we no longer need so many because we're asking Kenyans, what would you rather have? Services at your ward or more representatives at the National Assembly? And they're saying no, punguza wote.
Alex, do you think development should go to the board? Like, you know, Punguza Mizigo is proposing.
I know she's a lawyer and she's not said whether the MCAs will reduce or not.
Let me just answer.
Okay.
We are not touching the number of elected MCAs. There's 1,450 wards. We are saying on those wards, we keep them as they are so that to each ward, you bring the resources to that MCA. It reaches the people. But for every nomination, whether it's for an MCA, whether it's for a National Assembly or Senate, we've said let's do away with nominations because that's an additional Mizigo we do not want. And that's why we proposed let's vote one woman and one man from every county, which will now be considered as a constituency. We will have 50 women, 50 men. We'll never debate the gender issue any further regarding the National Assembly and the Senate, which is Parliament. That way, we won't need to have nominations, and we will also have reduced the wage bill. We will have sorted that.
Which makes sense, but what I keep wondering is representation is at different levels in Kenya. So you have representation at the national parliament. You have representation at the county level through the members of the county assembly. So if we woke up in 2022 and we found that all MCAs are male, do we then say that that is representation enough and therefore we do not need women at that level? Because in your view, in your proposals, it means that at that level, even if Kenyans elected MCAs who are only men, then that is what saves through, and representation is only considered if it happens at the national level. At the county level, who are actually at the national level, not at the county level. And so that is one. I'm sure a lot of women have a problem with that. But having said that, I think in terms of looking at and I said this before, looking at the way we look at how countries develop. Part of the reason why Africa is where it is today is because the colonialists, and I've said that before, divided Africa into small little countries that don't make economic sense. And that's why, for example, in Kenya, even in Kenya alone, we're having the different blocks, economic blocks form, because that is the only way it becomes economically viable. For example, you can't subdivide Nyanza into little pieces. The more you form Nyanza and Western region as an economic block, then the better it is to attract bigger money and attract big infrastructure projects that can actually spur greater economic growth. So what the bill is doing is good in terms of telling Kenyans that we will bring services closer to you. But the bigger picture is actually lost, in my view, in terms of looking at how do we ensure that this country becomes another China, for example. It means if we go that direction, then this country will keep focusing on the little small things, which are good for today. But for purposes of 50, 100 years from today, then this country will lag behind in terms of ensuring that we actually prosper as fast as possible.
Just as we've seen, I know you are a proponent of the BBI, and just from the views that we've been hearing from the public, there are those who feel that BBI has been metamorphosized into many different things. In terms of the legality and the structures around it, is BBI qualified to when they get the report, we're not even sure if they'll be proposing constitutional amendments?
First of all, it's very clear because from the public domain and from those who have interacted with BBI closer even than us, that BBI would be pushing even for a referendum change. But when you look at the history of the BBI and where it originated, it's just because of two people, the president and the leader of maybe the opposition at that time, who is Raila Odinga, who came together because all Kenyans were fighting from all corners because of these two gentlemen. And when they came together, they said, after every 5 years, since 2002, after we were elected Kibaki, then 2007 there was chaos, 2013, our economy has been going on a trajectory moving up. But when we come to election, it comes down again. So they decided we can come together and look at what can we bring a cure for the nation, such that we are going to create a change that will last, because it is very clear that after every 5 years, there are chaos in the country. So that's when they came up with this idea of even having a handshake before the public and even forming a team that will walk around the country so that they can even gather from the people what they can bring forward so that we can try to bring the healing. First of all, it is late for the BBI to have already brought their document to us, because what they are proposing, it will be so unfair if it is only known by a few people. Yet, as we are discussing here, we don't even know what they intend to discuss. But I want to say that the Punguza Mzigo have done well because they have already exposed what they are thinking, and their bill is into the public domain. So it is even more likely some of the points they have included, they might be uplifted the way they are. They feature again in the BBI, what we think it is good for us, as what we can maybe prophesy. But the most important thing now is we are looking at a nation whereby we want an economic healing of this country, such that there will never come a time when we shall go back to it, we shall be starting again. We keep on moving, then we start all over again. And that's why BBI should work so closely with even the team that is there. And even I interacted with the BBI when they were walking around, and I realized also there was a lot of problem, because even the time limitation, you're not given enough time to express yourself.
Okay.
You are not even, most of the people is like, some areas they're even planted, those who will speak and those who will not speak. So for them right now, what they are giving us as a country, let them consider, because my point is we are just going to vote for one document. It is only one document that will be laid down to Mwananchi. Otherwise,
and
we shall have
we are talking about Punguza Mzigo.
Yes, we shall have a Punguza Mzigo that will fail. Then after another year, we will have another bill that will fail. Because as per the constitution, you can move maybe through the parliament or through the Mwananchi, as the Punguza Mzigo have done. But for now, the initiative of Punguza Mzigo, I love their hard work, their energy. This is what the Kenya we want. If that energy is harnessed and brought forward, we can get people who can move this country forward. But let them also not push, let them also take time and listen what we are saying also in terms of areas of change. So that it can be a political goodwill for everyone.
All right.
Yes.
I'll be getting to you in terms of the progress as we come towards the end of the show, the progress so far, and the feeling on the ground regarding the particular bill. So I'll just throw it over to Jen quickly so she can sum up before we completely wrap up this show. Over to you, Jen, the final feedback.
All right, hashtag is Beyond the Headlines on Twitter. Official handle ever remains at KBC Television. And on this side of studio, we'll also continue with the discussion. We have such a huge panel in today's discussion. I am joined with two other gentlemen on this side of studio. I will be introducing you to them in not too long. But quickly to just sample two more tweets that I want us to have a quick look at before we continue with the discussion here on this side of studio. We have Abu who is saying, what the proponents of BBI are trying to tell you is that we increase the number of the offices and bearers who can steal more of the little resources we have, resist and support the Punguza Mzigo bill. Again, the comparison between Punguza and the BBI. We have Mudhui here who's saying, MCAs supporting the Punguza Mzigo bill are being clever by a half. If the MP seat is done away with and the MCA seat is made more lucrative and powerful, MPs will seek the powerful MCA seat and kick out the current holders. Hashtag the Punguza Mzigo flaws. That is what we have received in the last 5 or so minutes. And I just want to get your immediate reaction when somebody can actually make such a deduction. Once the MCA's position is made more lucrative and more powerful, the predecessor will kick them out and just come and take over this position, and the cycle keeps going. What do you make of this tweet by Muthui?
Okay, thanks, Jane. The first thing we have to look at is not what Dr. Kurokot ought to have known, is the issue is not about the numbers. It is the nature of the people we are electing. You can bring many people who are good, who will perform. You can bring a few people whom will cleverly sit down and eat everything. You see that? So that is the point we are trying to look at. The political goodwill currently of the politicians and the MPs is not good. So if we bring only 2 people to represent the nation in terms of being in the parliament or whatever, if they are greedy, the issue will continue. Remember, the idea of devolution was to bring back the resources to the people. And even if it's a matter of stealing, at least right now we have more 47 thieves than 1 thief. Initially, we only had maybe 1 or 2 thieves. So the 47 thieves can steal and maybe distribute the resources to their neighbors, and at least the people can end up getting a few of the liters of the resources, as opposed to getting a few number of people who will steal everything and and control the nation in another way they want. So if we compare again with the other person, when he was trying to say about the BBI, what we are articulating, or what we are saying is the BBI sat down and then they started analyzing where the rain started beating Kenyans. What is our problems? Where are we coming from? What are our national ethos? What is making us each and every time the winners take his role and things like that? Then they said we have to go for a building bridge initiative where we have to check 9 pillars. The pillars that will reconstruct, bring reconciliation, and be able to do away by the divisive politics by looking at the...
I'll have to cut you short due to the interest of time. Next to him we have Obiero Kobiero, who has just joined us. He is the organizing secretary at the People's Grassroots Movement as well. Now, just hearing from what Jackton Obadia is saying, you know, in regards to, it's not about the number of people, it's about the kind of people who are being put in these positions. Your immediate thoughts?
Okay. What I would like to say, first of all, I'm not supporting
the Punguza Mzigo bill.
Punguza Mzigo.
All right.
With some other reasons.
Why? Very briefly.
First of all, you know, Punguza Mzigo, kwa Kiswahili, ni kupunguza. So we have to understand this kind of Kiswahili. So when
so mzigo bado iko.
Mzigo bado iko. So kwa Kiswahili sanifu, mzigo bado wananchi bado wamebeba.
Okay.
Kile ambao angependa angeeleza wa Kenya ya kwamba tuondoe mizigo. And that's the reason why I really supported what was started by 2 principles in terms of dialogue and national dialogue and reconciliation.
Okay.
First of all, you know, Mr. Okuriokot, in other terms, I thought that he didn't do well research before he came up with this kind of idea. Because when you go back to the grassroots, you'll find that maybe one man, there are some other people who are dying concerning the current, how they serve their family. Because you'll find that what we are supposed to fight for is what we call corruption. Because the corruption is what makes people suffer.
All right.
Because I think that's the way.
All right.
Yes.
Let me quickly go to the extreme left. We have Isaac Rotich, who is the youth governor, still at the People's Grassroots Movement. You represent the youth. How do you feel about this, the Punguza Mzigo bill, in terms of even involving the youth through this process? And of course, it being so heavily compared to the Punguza, the BBI, the Building Bridges
Initiative. Thank you. When I compare BBI, between BBI and Punguza Mzigo.
Very briefly, sorry.
Okay, fine. When you see PPI is trying to include some positions whereby some people are being given some jobs so that we create an harmony in our country. But when you see in Punguza Mzigo, like my colleague said that ni Punguza Mzigo, kwa nini tuseme kwa mfano when a donkey is carrying a luggage, afike mahali, how come useme ati punda yangu imechoka so that you want to remove those mzigo? Utawachia nani? Utawachia nani? It's like now, when you follow the history, Ekuru Okot, he was there 2010. Wakati walikuwa na submit a project about constitution.
All right.
So now that he realized that it has a problem, anasema tuwaje mzigo ngine. Tunawaje nani jamani?
Okay.
Like for us youths, we need a position whereby we need some jobs. Na PPI is trying to fight for the common rights of Kenyans.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Unfortunately, that is all the time that we have for this side of the discussion. Remember, we were talking about the Punguza Mzigo bill, as well as, you know, it's been heavily compared to the BBI initiative, which wasn't, you know, part of the discussion, but just from what we have received on our social media platforms. But that puts a cap on the side of the discussion. speaking with. Just to remind me, all the gentlemen that I had on this side of the studio, we have a gentleman who is Secretary General at the People's Grassroots Movement. We also had Alex Otunga, who left set to make room for the next guest. He is the coordinator at the People's Grassroots Movement. We also had Mark Ababu, who is the current president of Bunge la Mwananchi. We now have Obiero Kobiero, who is the organizing secretary, as well as Isaac Rotich, who is the youth governor, still with the People's Grassroots Movement. That puts us up on matters this side of the studio. Just back to you, Catherine, to sum it all up.
All right. Thank you, Jane. And we are really out of time, but Eunice, 30 seconds, even as you respond to Punguza Mzigo and just where you are in terms of progress, reaching out to people at the grassroots.
What I really like about what the supporters and opponents of Punguza Mizigo bill is that we all agree our biggest problem is corruption. It is the kind of leaders that we elect. That is why in the Punguza Mizigo bill, we've put a proposal that the current leaders can agree with. We have said the Auditor General is a finding. The Auditor General investigates, then makes findings. Money has been wasted, money has been misappropriated, money is missing. That finding should be used as per the proposal we are to. After charging, that we say the trial should take only 30 days.
Out of time.
Let me finish this, please, so that I answer corruption. 30 days trial, 21 days for appeal. Then if you're found guilty, it's like he said, once you're mentioned by the Auditor General, you leave office, you don't step aside finding. So we've taken care of corruption in the bill. Nobody should worry about it.
All right, just as your final comments, 10 seconds.
First of all, one of the key things to solve as we are working out this is the House, the Senate, and the National Assembly. One of the things that we need to take in is the committees. We have a lot of committees in the two houses. So if we can have a document or a bill that harnesses the two houses, that we have representation from the Senate, representation from the National Assembly. As we are really waiting for the BBI so that you can also read it, we internalize it so that when we are talking, we can be talking of something already touched and something we have something to compare with. Because we know even some of, not every MP agree with the BBI maybe, others you refuse. So the Punguza Mzigo might also have the upper hand.
Our time is, we are really pressed for time. 10 seconds.
All Kenyans agree that we need to do something about our country. But as we agree that we need to do something and fix our country, we also need to be practical. And this is why in a few seconds. If we woke up in 2023 and the Auditor General raised queries in 47 counties, and we said that all governors will automatically go home, what happens to this country? So we have to be practical in the way in 2023, we don't go back again and start the constitution that will have passed.
Yeah, constitutions are made for prosperity and unforeseen things. Right, thank you all. Unfortunately, our time is up, but we appreciate you all finding time to be with us this evening. Of course, we are talking to Eunice Nganga, who is an advocate of the High Court as well as the legal advisor. We've also had with us Justice Ngare, who is a political analyst and a lecturer at Kisii University. And finally, Alex Manyasi, who is a governance expert and our resident analyst. My name is Catherine. We put a cap on the show tonight. Of course, Darubini is up next. Do have yourself the rest of your viewing. Good night.